Cairngorms National Park Authority. I'm Sandy Brenner, the board convener. We're delighted to be meeting again here at Ballators Albert Hall. This is part of the board's commitment to meet in communities around the National Park. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to members of the public listening back to a recording of this session. I'm afraid that despite the best efforts of our team, the Wi-Fi is not supporting a live stream today. We have apologies from Paul Gibb and Kerry Deans. Item 2, approval of minutes from previous meetings and the minutes from the 28th of March 2025. Is the board content with the accuracy of the minutes? Agreed. Minutes approved. Thank you very much. Item 3, matters arising not covered elsewhere. So these are action points for our meeting on the 22nd of March 2024. Paper 1, CEO report, paragraph 7.1. CEO to prepare a briefing note on farming activity and statistics within the Cairngorms National Park and to distribute to the board. This is in hand. The SRUC, that's Scotland's Rural College, is working with our agricultural advisor, Malcolm Smith, on the data. The report should be ready for our September board meeting. Action points for our meeting on the 22nd of November 2024. Paper 1, CEO report, paragraph 6b, 1. Review the planning call-in protocol and discuss at a future planning committee. This is in hand. An informal discussion on call-in criteria is being held with committee members after planning committee at an upcoming meeting. Paper 5, active Cairngorms and end of season visitor report. At paragraph 23a, 1, include key challenges in mitigation and learning in future papers. This is to be included in the 2025 report. And at paragraph 23c.2, statistics on campsite and luxury camping options within the national park. This will be included in this year's report. The action points for our meeting on the 28th of March 2025, paper 1, CEO report. At paragraph 10, list of Cairngorms 2030 projects currently going through procurement processes to be circulated to the board. This is completed and the board will be updated biannually with a list of the procurement underway and completed. Paper 2, 2025-26 budget and operational plan, point 1. Information on the number of ecological barriers that are being removed on catchments to be sought and circulated to the board, and thought to be given to putting into staff members' forward work plan. This is in hand. And point 2, to investigate the scope of extending the work on species management, specifically geese, further up the Spey into Badenoch, in hand. On the first of those 2 points, information is being sought for the number of ecological barriers that are being removed on catchments, but this is not yet available. This will be shared with the board once it is. Paper 3, consultation response to Highland Council visitor levy proposal. Point 1, sentence to be added to end of consultation response as detailed in paragraph 18a completed. And point 2, CEO to keep the board abreast with any developments in the discussions between HMRC and the UK government with regards to the impact that any future tourism levy would have on VAT thresholds in Scotland. That's completed. We move to item 4, declarations of interest. None have been received in advance. Are there any declarations of interest? We have none. Thank you very much, which takes us to our papers and item 5, paper 1, the CEO report and convener update. So this is for information to be introduced by our Chief Executive, Grant Moyer. This will include an update on the key points around the government's public service reform strategy launched just last week, and members will have noted the summary we received shortly after it was published. Grant.
Thank you, Convener. Morning, everyone. Just to highlight a few things that are in the reports. The first one is just the first page around peatland restoration, just to say that we've really done extremely well in the past financial year in terms of surpassing our target quite significantly, and we're also now doing a lot of work this year looking at pipeline delivery for future years as well. So I'm hopeful that we'll have a good pipeline to meet all our targets associated with peatland over the next few years as we take that forward. So that's in a good place. The other part that I just wanted to highlight was the volunteer ranger side of things. We've been training another batch of volunteer rangers. They've now completed their training, and there's going to be a further follow-up with more volunteer rangers in the autumn, which should take us up on over 100. So we're moving towards our target set out in the park plan for the end of the park plan period. So we're in a good place with volunteer rangers, and it's great to see so many people coming forward and giving their time to doing things within the Cairngorms. The only other bit in the paper that I just wanted to highlight was the website side of things, which is that the new website is now live. It's obviously quite a change where we were previously. It's really good in terms of driving traffic and getting stories out around what we're doing within the Cairngorms National Park. So if you haven't had to look at it, then please do. And overall, our amount of comms activity has increased substantially on the previous year, as outlined in the paper. I was just going to highlight the public service reform side of things, which is that the strategy came out last week. High-level strategy in terms of the future for public services in Scotland. There's obviously a lot of work to be done on what that looks like on the ground and what that means for different organisations. Two key points which I highlighted, which is around the reduce the Scottish Government and public body corporate spend by 20% over the next 5 years. That's going to be obviously a big focus across all the different parts of government as we look to see what that means for individual bodies, what that means for how we can do things. But in essence, it's trying to drive efficiencies, and we obviously continue to do that. For instance, the work that we've done on our website has meant that we've been able to save funding in other places in terms of some of the systems we use. So there's ways to squeeze efficiency out in the corporate side as well, but we'll need to look at what that means for the organisation over the next few years, and we'll obviously be doing that with the Resources Committee as well. The other part is around, and there are lots of other bits to the public service reform around technology, around AI, around workforce management and all these things, which are obviously key to the Park Authority anyway. But the other sort of bit that's probably worth pointing out is the review of the delivery landscape of the 134 public bodies and 50 Scottish Government directorates. We are part of the EILG part of government, so Environment and Economy Leaders Group. So we sit under the N4 side, Environment and Forestry, along with people like Nature Scot and SEPA and other bodies. They are looking at clusters as to what that means for that. It doesn't necessarily mean changes to bodies. It's maybe looking at who does what, who leads on what. So there's quite a lot of work to be done on that as we go forward. And I know that the EILG body itself will be looking at the different opportunities. We already have a number of things happening on the PSR front, so we are part of the place prototype work. So that is looking at how we can try and streamline who does what within different places, and the two pilots for that are in the D catchment and in the S catchment. The Park Authority is leading on the work in the D, and SEPA is leading on the work in the S that's just kicking off, and that will really help us to understand how we can try and use the place side of things and actually looking at places rather than looking at it through individual organisations and who leads on what, and again how we can maybe drive efficiencies through that work. So there's quite a lot going on the PSR side. I'll keep the board updated through the CEO report at each of the formal boards, and then obviously we'll be taking stuff to especially the Resources Committee around some of the stuff to do with workforce management and such like, as we're developing our next organisational development plan as well. So that's all I wanted to update people on. Happy to take any questions on the report.
Yeah, thank you, Grant. So any questions or comments? And Chiva Blackett.
Thank you. I've got quite a lot, really. So the first point was on the Deeside Way. It's great to see that you're doing some work on that. And actually, every time I pass the bit that was done last year, it's now got poppies and wildflowers growing out of that banking that was put in, and it looks absolutely glorious. So I look forward to further updates on that. Turning to Sandy's on 6 and 9, I wonder if you could expand a bit on the affordable housing work that's going on, because that's so key to our aims and everything, really. And then I've got a more general question, which is about the groups that sit under our custodianship, I suppose. So I know Eleanor chairs one and Peter chairs one, but we never get any updates or see any minutes. And I mean, for all we know, you could be about to import Kapakeli from Finland because we just don't know what's going on. So if we could have some updates on that, that'd be great. Thank you. Not necessarily now, but at some stage.
Right, I mean, happy to get back to you in detail on discussions with the Scottish Land Commission and the King's Foundation. These were general discussions about directions of travel in relation to the Scottish Land Commission. In respect of point 9 of the King's Foundation, this was a follow-up to the meeting at Mar Lodge, which attracted a significant number of landowners from across the national park. Half of the day was devoted to trying to move on the discussion about affordable rural housing. It was a fairly high-level discussion, but there was broad agreement on the need and a fairly active discussion about potential avenues. But again, I'd be happy to get back to you on more detail on those. Grant on Kapakeli.
On groups. Yeah, I mean, we can... I mean, the minutes are put on the website. We're more than happy to make sure that they're available to vote. But we will put them on the board portal so that everyone can see what's going on at each of the minutes, each of the meetings.
Because, yeah, thank you. If I've just come back briefly, I did actually look on the new board website and I couldn't see anything. I'm probably not looking in the right place. And also that reminds me, on the board portal, can we please have contact details for more than just the key people? Otherwise, we're just going to bother the key people all the time, Grant.
Well, more than happy for you to continue to bother the key people. That's our role. But yeah, we'll put the minutes on the board portal as well, so that there's an easier place for folk to find them. So we'll do that. That's no problem.
Thank you, Chiva. Fiona McLean, followed by Hannah Grist.
Yeah, no, absolutely delighted to see the progress, the really positive progress for the Cairngorms 2030 programme, and I see we have all the updates here in this little leaflet, which is really good. I was struck by the fact that the funding that was made available through this programme for the deer management groups in the south of the park was incredibly oversubscribed. And there was mention that you were directing them to alternative funding. Now, clearly there is big demand for this. It's obviously very popular. And I just wondered how you might be taking this forward in the future. Because I don't think it's, I suspect there's not a great deal of alternative funding. So I just wondered what we are doing to try and fill clearly what is a gap.
Yeah, so I suppose it depends on some of the things that people applied for might fit more neatly into other grant schemes that are available. So things like Scottish Forestry Grant Scheme that's out there, or applications into the Nature Restoration Fund as well, that obviously Nature Scot have had, which a few different people within the park have been successful with. So if we feel that a project actually fits a different grant scheme better, if you like, than one that we're running, then we'll probably point them towards those grant schemes. I mean, we will always have demand exceeding supply, I think, in terms of land management projects. I suppose what we're trying to do here is to do the ones that most meet the aims of Cairngorms 2030 that can show multiple benefits. But we want to work with people. If there's good plans out there, we will try and find a way to make those happen. Sometimes they might happen quickly. Sometimes they might take a bit of time to find the right way of making them happen. And in the future, there might be other opportunities. You know, there's things like follow-on with NLHF and things like Landscape Connections, etc. There are other opportunities as well within the I suppose, post-Cairngorms 2030. I can't believe I'm saying that, being that we're in the midst of Cairngorms 2030, but there are other ways in the future. So we'll work with people, as we always do, to try and find the best approach. But I mean, it is good that it's oversubscribed, but it also does show that there's an awful lot of demand out there to do different things. Yeah.
Thank you. Hannah Grist.
Thanks, Convener. I actually just wanted to pick up on the website, which you mentioned. I had the pleasure of going through it this week with the Equalities Advisory Panel in some detail, and they wanted to pass on their congratulations for how well it has been developed, taking into account a lot of these, the comments from this group, but also the huge amount of work that's gone into it, So I want to really mark our kind of appreciation for the communications team and what they've managed to achieve with it. But I think a lot of what we talk about in this board is that our communications are not sometimes they're not got across what we're managing to achieve in the right way, and I think the website does a much, much better job of doing that now. So yeah, I really want to kind of highlight that. I think it's a line in there, but a huge amount of work that's gone into it. And I had a question, I guess, around the kind of evaluation of the success of that. I'm sure there is a kind of a programme of work to look at how people are using it, what they're using, and if it's changing the kind of impressions. But do we have any more, or could we have any more updates on what that evaluation might look like, and when we'll be able to see if there has been any impact of this work on our kind of wider strategic aims?
Yeah, I mean, we've got all the analytics side of things in terms of pulling out the data as to which pages who's looking at, where they go to, where they come from. I mean, enough stuff to sink the Titanic, I think, when it comes to analytics. So we'll pull that together. I mean, I think we've probably got to leave it run for a while to see how it actually operates. We're always still adding bits. I mean, there are still things to do in the website, and there's still a couple of new modules to add into the website over the next few months. So we'll be looking at that, but we'll be coming back with reports on how the website's doing. We did an update at the last performance committee, and I suspect we will do another one in a year's time with this is what it looks like, this is what's working, these are the tweaks we're making. On the wider comms point, I think we're in a really good place at the moment in terms of the amount of coverage we're getting, which is sort of reflected in some of the stuff in the stats in the report. But even last night there was a big piece on the national park about green jobs on STV. We've had loads of coverage this past week around stuff that's happening on the diversionary feeding side of things, and lots of other bits. So there's been a lot of uptake over the past 6 months. I think that is a good sign in terms of the comms team itself, but also, and this is one of the key things, is it only works if you've got things to tell people. And I've always been of the opinion you can't comms your way out of something if you don't have stuff to actually show. And the reality is we've got some really good stuff happening that is good to talk to people about because it shows that there's good things happening in the Cairngorms.
Yeah, I'd just like to endorse Hannah's comments on the comms team in general terms and the vast amount of work that's gone into the website. It's proved really effective. Any other comments or questions on the paper? None. Thank you very much, and thank you, Grant. Move on to item 6, paper 2, the Integrated Wildfire Management Plan. So this is for decision. The board is being asked to approve the Integrated Wildfire Management Plan. This follows our informal board discussion, extensive informal consultations with land managers right across the national park, and the subsequent formal consultation process. As we've discussed before, it aims to chart a course through the different approaches to land management and put us in a good place to reduce wildfire risk, and it comes alongside the fire management bylaw which we're seeking. The paper will be introduced by Colin McLean, Head of Land Management. Colin.
Thank you, Convener, and good morning to you all. You will remember approving the first draft of the Integrated Welfare Management Plan for consultation on the 14th of February. That consultation ran from the 24th of February to the 4th of April, and we received 15 responses from organisations, land managers and some interested individuals. We received a wide range of points, and we've amended the draft plan where we thought appropriate. Throughout the creation of this plan, we have tried to promote collaboration and to maintain the long-held culture of mutual aid when combating wildfire. So the plan, therefore, does not seek to challenge any land management objective, but encourages land managers to consider wildfire in all aspects of their land management planning. We have received one item of correspondence following the publication of the version that you are considering today, and it's a helpful intervention. This relates to section 2.2 on Muirburn, which is on page 9. And this response suggests we change the action under Muirburn to read, all Muirburn practitioners to adhere to the requirements of the new statutory Muirburn licensing system. Currently it reads, adhere to the requirements set out in the Muirburn Code. Now, the Muirburn Code is a component of the new statutory Muirburn licensing system, which is a broader thing. So this response is actually helpful, and we would ask you to approve it, which I think we can do through the minutes. So beyond that point, we have budgeted £75,000 to deliver wildfire and responsible behaviour signage and other comms. And we feel there are sufficient staff resource available to support ranger patrolling and that sort of thing if and when the bylaw is approved. Finally, we will ask CUAG, Cairngorms Upland Advisory Group, and the Park Authority Performance Committee to monitor the implementation of the plan going forward. So we would ask you to approve the plan, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin. So just before we open up for questions and comments, do we have agreement of that amendment to the paper with respect to Muirburn and the Muirburn licensing system? We do agreement. Thank you. Comments and questions? Peter Cosgrove.
Thank you, Colin. I wish to commend the finalised version of the plan. And with my role as the chair of the Cairngorms Upland Advisory Group, I'm delighted to see that all of the issues that were raised in that forum have been addressed and are included and given proper thought and consideration, from mutual aid, equipment and training. The whole gambit of comments have been picked up, and so thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Grant.
Yeah, just say one thing which is probably just worth highlighting on the, I think it's worth saying, is that the Climate Adaptation Fund has also been helpful to have alongside developing the integrated welfare management plan, in that we have helped a number of different estates and others around welfare management planning, training and equipment as well. So I suppose it's both sides in terms of we have a plan, that's all very well, but actually need to implement the plan and need to actually make things happen. And I think having those two things together has been good. There's obviously a lot more that we need to dig into, and it will be interesting to see what progress we make over the next year, but obviously we'll be coming back with reports to say how we're doing around that. But it doesn't sit like with many things in the national park. The Park Authority can do some of it, but it actually needs a lot of other people to step up as well, mainly in the landed estates as well. So we'll be working on that, and obviously CUAG will be the main place for discussions around that with people in terms of how we take that forward. But I think having the funding in the adaptation fund is definitely helpful.
Thank you very much. And we are incredibly fortunate the range of and the depth of skills we have across the national park on our estates, and the level of cooperation we've had in the development of the plan. Chief of Blackhead.
Yeah, thank you. It was really a question coming out of that, and I just wondered if there was any update on the bylaw.
Yeah. Yes, so it is with Scottish ministers. There were 2 minor objections which they've got to look at, but I'm hopeful that we will get an announcement of what the minister's decision on that is very shortly. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions on the paper? Done. Thank you very much. In which case, is the board content to approve the integrated welfare management plan as amended regarding the reference to the Muirburn licensing system? Agreed. Thank you very much. We move on to item 7, paper 3, community-led local development and partnership work with the Cairngorms Trust. Now this is for information. The paper shows the extensive work to ensure community-led local delivery by the Cairngorms Trust. It charts just how much support there's been for our communities right across the national park. So the board is being asked to note progress to date in delivery of the National Park Partnership Plan and the corporate plan objectives in respect of community-led local development, which we'll shorten to CLLD, discuss the value of CLD actions and the development of the Cairngorms Trust to date, and to discuss and provide strategic advice on forward plans in support of future CLD programmes of work and the interaction of the Park Authority and the Cairngorms Trust. On that last point, I would ask members to consider how we'd like to see this work develop over the next 10 years or so, and where we want to see community-led local development go in the national park. That's a strategic guidance for our officers. The paper will be introduced by Nancy Chambers, Cairngorms Trust Manager.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you and welcome. Thank you for welcoming us into the meeting today. The Cairngorms Trust, as you well know, has been around as a SCIO for coming up for 10 years in 2026, which is a great achievement and has had a huge impact on the amount of funding that has been able to go out to communities within the Cairngorms. We have been working with our board in the last year, and we have had a revise and update of our mission, vision and values, and again just keeping them current with what has been going on throughout the Cairngorms. And what we thought we would try and do throughout the paper is, I suppose, bring the paper to life a little bit, because there's a lot of projects that we have supported in terms of going forward, and by 2026 we should be in the area of funding up to £2 million worth of funding going out to projects within the Cairngorms, which is a phenomenal achievement. A lot of that has come through the Scottish Government Fund, the CLLD funding, that my colleague Bridget will chat about, and but there are other areas and strands of funding that you will note within the board paper. Luke, would you be able to just flick this on, because it doesn't seem to be wanting to flick on. Brilliant. So our key themes this year have been looking at community with the CLLD funding, our nature resilience and networks for nature projects, path maintenance, our youth projects and our active Cairngorms e-bike project. We have also in the past year funded a project that's been, or projects that have been specifically looking at within the Black and minority ethnic groups as well, which has been our Park for All funding. So there's been a good variety of projects and funds going out. So our Community Impact Fund, and this is where I'm going to hand over to Bridget just now, is looking, we've got grants going back from 2016 in partnership, some just with Cairngorms Trust, some in partnership with the CMP. So the Green Recovery Fund was delivered in partnership. The Green Change Fund, which was the predecessor to the CLLD funding, and this Community-Led Vision Fund, where we are just now. So I'm going to hand over to Bridget just now.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you for welcoming us here today. So as Nancy said, I thought it would be interesting to, sorry Luke, could you move that on? It's not moving. Interesting to have a look at bringing the paper to life, and just to give you a snapshot of what we did over the last year. So that would just give you an overview of the depth and breadth of different projects that we have received from communities and managed to fund in that time. That's 404,000 that we managed to put out to communities last year. Give it another go. There we go. So they're not very exciting photos sometimes, but these projects really mean an enormous amount to the communities that they're going into. We really see our funding as a partnership. Cairngorms Trust and the funding group, the local action group, we like to create a long-term partnership with the people that come for funding with us. Grandtown YMCA, I think, is a really good example of that. We've been working with them since leader times, so a good 10 years at various aspects of their work, from youth work to mother and baby groups to setting up a small SCIO, Whole Food shop in their facility, and then looking more recently at their much more unsexy things like toilets and accessible facilities, which are really, really needed for a modern community centre. So as I say, it's really a partnership between us. And hopefully by building those partnerships, we mitigate some of the fact that we don't sit in a multi-year funding landscape anymore, and communities are constantly having to come to us year on year looking for the next piece of money. Castle Roy there you can see is another long-term project, and down at King Usi, the Market Stance public venue, we've done a number of bits of work with them, including floodlighting. We get a lot of projects coming forward from to support young people in schools, and I think it's always reflected in our board that it's unfortunate that the third sector is looked to support young people in our schools, but it is where we are. These are a number of projects that we supported last year. We also supported a number of projects looking at, with young people out with school, Fish Bay, for example, a really vibrant project, a wee playgroup, and we'll talk a bit later, I think, about the Cairngorms Youth Local Action Group, which has been a standout success specifically for this area and is seen as a countrywide leader in that space. We get a lot of groups looking to enable participation, and we're very, very fortunate in the Cairngorms to have some real leading innovation in the space of enabling participation in the outdoors. And this is just a couple of them there, and I'm happy to talk about those later. We find that Grant spoke earlier a little bit about often other funding is more appropriate for people. So we always look to work with groups in the Cairngorms about how we can plug gaps, how we can enable a jigsaw so that they can access more funding elsewhere, and how national funds don't always meet the needs of local communities. So quite often we work in the feasibility and support for development phase, and other funders are maybe not that interested in it. It's not a tangible asset, but it leads on to communities being able to do things for themselves. Jiva mentioned the development of community housing. It didn't come up last year, but the year before we supported Braemar, Dulnane and Strathdon, all to look at community housing needs in their communities. And there's a number of different projects there, from the Try in Granton through to a home and lone workers hub pilot here in the Mar area, where they were looking to pilot things and understand the feasibility of running a longer term project. So, communities are always really good at supporting themselves and looking at local need, and this is just an example of some projects looking at isolation, at poverty, at bringing groups together. And that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of some of the projects we've supported, but once Nancy's finished with speaking about the wider work of the Trust, I'd be really happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Bridget. So moving on to our nature funds, again we can see we have trialled a variety of different funds and ways of getting funding out to people within the communities, and we're constantly sharing that information with the CMP, and particularly at the moment with the 2030 project, and how the innovations that we've tried, what's worked, what's not worked. And this year we've got our second Networks for Nature fund going out. We've had 2 rounds of Nature Resilience Fund, and this is the second of the Networks for Nature. So the Nature Resilience Fund from 2022 to 2024 supported 20 projects, and they were all mainly community-based projects around the Cairngorms. We worked with the nature team from the CMPA to make sure that the aims that we were trying to achieve were National Park Partnership Plan aims, and we took guidance from them that we were able to take to the Cairngorms Trust Board. And just for information, the Cairngorms Trust Board is a completely separate board to any of the Park Authority boards and Park Authority staff, and we are constantly recruiting for board members and new board members. This year we have recruited 4 new board members who are spread across the park, and we'd be delighted if you would pass that information on to other people that might consider becoming a board member for the Cairngorms Trust. We've got some real standout projects there, and again, like Bridget, we have projects that we have supported on a regular basis. So, for example, the Skills for Bees project, which has been upskilling volunteers looking at bumblebees and identification and recording of bumblebees across the Cairngorms National Park. That has been gained funding from the Trust for the last 3 years, which is a really good continuation project. They do get funding from other sources as well, but we're one of the funders there. The Networks for Nature, where we started looking at creating corridors for nature, and you can see a lovely little example, a little community example just outside the door on the other side of the V&A halls. If you look up, you'll see a lovely little alleyway that's full to bursting of plants there, and if you look on the gate that's going in, the gate's left slightly ajar, and there's a little hedgehog cut out going through there, and then there's other hedgehog corridors going across into other gardens round and about. So there's some small projects like that one to some of the bigger projects that have been going on, where we've had community orchards, we've had tree planting on bigger scales from other projects, and we've also through this fund supported a couple of young people to gain qualifications to allow them to be employed within the nature sector. Our path maintenance fund, we have run 2 sectors of this. This is where we have directly fundraised for the path maintenance side of things. The direct fundraising has been more challenging, but we have had 2 runs of that, one down at Kingussie and one across in Braemar, looking at accessibility of paths. The one in Kingussie was looking at community maintenance of the local paths down there as well. And we hope to reopen a future fund in 2025 to develop that further with another round of grants going out. So this is just a quick look at the Society Bridge, making the access and the egress to the bridge and repairs to the bridge that was completed this year. Our youth lag has, as Bridget said, had been a real standout performance, and I believe someone from the youth lag has come and spoken to the CMPA board at times. The youth lag at the moment has supported 99 projects, and with £92,000 worth of funding over 5 rounds of projects. Young people that form the youth lag, we've created them into a subgroup of the youth of the lag, and they have designed, developed, and are constantly re-evaluating what they're wanting to do with the youth lag and how the funding is going. I hope will have seen some of the social media information coming out. We've just closed a round of funding just now, which will take the youth impact going into funds to over £100,000 with over 100 projects. So I'm hoping you've seen some of the 100 and 100 comms that have been going out from either the Cairngorms Trust or from the CMPA. And again, there's been a huge amount of groups that have benefited from that, from training, from adventurous activities, from young people getting qualified to be able to work in the park, from young people, again, this is another face spay. We helped them create a CD so that the music and traditional music is continued on, and young black adventurers coming up to visit the park. So there's a huge amount of variety of projects there. Just this year we have worked with a lived experience panel, and the lived experience panel have co-designed a project for us with getting funding out to groups within the black and minority ethnic groups within the park and out with the park. Now this has the funding was launched, and we had originally put out £5,000 to go along with that, but we then, when the projects came in, the lived experience panel who were scoring the projects, and then we took the scored projects to the Cairngorms Trust Board. The lived experience panel were really keen to fund a couple of other projects. So one they funded from Cairngorms Trust, and another one has gone through CLLD funding. So we've actually funded 6 projects through that, but one's been through the CLLD funding as well. So it's a really good starter of a sort of like a project, and we're looking at ways that we can develop that in future years. And again, that has been done in partnership with the Park Authority, and the information has been shared with the Park Authority. And in the 2030 project, there has been the lived experience panel is continued to be working with an officer within the CMPA to continue the movement of that going forward. In terms of our Active Cairngorms e-bike project, this was a leader project that has grown arms and legs and been a legacy project for the Cairngorms, which is absolutely fantastic. The project gives low-cost or no-cost loans for 4 to 6 weeks of an e-bike to people within the Badenoch and Strathspey area. We are currently expanding that up to include Tomintoul and Glenlivet, and down to Blair Athol. And again, that's with funding from the 2030 project that we're looking at doing that expansion. We have roughly about 100 completed to 125 completed loans each year that go out, with the cargo e-bikes again being a huge use for people, and we're starting to see that behaviour change where people are buying either an e-bike or going back to their own bike post-loan, and really sort of like continuing to cycle post-loan. So there's a lot of really good information and data coming out of the ACE project that we have shared with the 2030 team and the wider park there. 25-26, we're again continuing on with our funds there. And looking forwards, we're really continuing to look to work in partnership with projects, and continuing, we hope, to work in partnership with the CMPA to deliver funding to community projects within the park. And the great thing about the projects is you never know where they take you. The picture of the pump track there, that's a pump track that was funded through Green Recovery, and that was an event that was held in Boat of Garton, following that by Velo Solutions. And just this week, if you have read the Strathia across in Badenoch and Strathspey, you will see that there's a young man from Carbridge who regularly goes up to the pump track, who is now representing Great Britain, and is going out to, can't remember where he's going out to, but he's going out internationally to represent Great Britain in the World Pump Track Championships, which is fantastic. So it's just sort of little bits all make a difference in all the community projects that we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy and Bridget. And I think we've just seen some great examples of enabling the ambition and the sheer enterprise in our communities. So this is our chance to discuss specifics, but also the longer term, to give some strategic thinking to this work. We have questions or comments from Eleanor McIntosh, Jiva Blackett and Jackie Brereton to start. Eleanor.
Well, first of all, thanks, ladies. I should say that I sit on the board as a rep from the Park Board, so I'm quite close to a lot of the projects. My comments would be, there's super projects coming through, really good projects, and lots of them. It's a big budget that they're sending out, they're spending, and my question is, so what? What difference is it actually making? And I think there is work starting to be done on an evaluation of what it actually is meaning to communities, and not just, you know, money being put out the door and, you know, is it making a difference really? You know, we've heard what the ladies have said, but I think we do need some fact-finding figures to support that. And I think that will inform future spend. It's really, to me, I think it's really disappointing to see that the third sector is picking up on the work that we're funding in schools. And I hope the councillors round the table will take that message back. And I know all about tight budgets and everything, but when you see the difference that these people are making to the children that they're dealing with in the schools, it's quite heartbreaking really to see that that's needed to come from the third sector. Because it not only affects that child or that young person, it affects the other people in the class as well. I would like in the future to see funding going truly park-wide into the corners of the park that don't seem to be getting that spend. And that's all about community ability to apply for funding. And I know that anybody that comes forward will get all the help and support from the staff, but it's getting them to come forward with ideas. And the projects that are being funded, they've got to be sustainable when the funding stops. There's got to be a way of keeping them going. So that's my big points, I think. Sustainability and evaluation. And a wee bit less of third sector involvement in schools.
Just before we move on to any other points being made, comments please on the points Eleanor's just made on evaluation, on distribution across the park, local authority pick-up on some of this work. Shiva.
Yeah, well, I was actually going to speak much about what Eleanor's spoken about because, first of all, I think that your presentation really did bring alive what you're doing. This was a fairly dry paper, and my eyes opened when I realised how much you were doing. I think Eleanor wanted to know about, you know, what is the long-term impact. Well, let's just start with one of those projects. You showed a picture of a very good-looking man in yellow wellies. The Mar log bank started around our kitchen table at a discussion, and it's now, you've funded it. It's helped a lot of people in poverty. I was talking to the Poverty and Inequalities Officer at the council the other day, and she likes it so much, they're rolling it out in other communities across Aberdeenshire. So I think that's showing how actually strategically we're coming up with the good ideas in the park, and also it's enabled the communities within Mar to start doing it for themselves. So now, instead of it being centralised, it's gone out and other communities are actually running their own log banks, and you know that. You spoke about reaching the parts that other people, others don't normally get. Well, we're beginning to sound a little bit like Heineken here, but Grant, we've all had conversations about Strathdon, and I think that there's a lot of work that we can do in Strathdon in making them more sustainable. I would like to see Braemar Care replicated in Strathdon Care, and I think that's something that could be funded. And I think it's very sad that the local authorities are so badly funded that the third sector is having to step in, but this is not a new thing. And I'll try not to get too political, seeing as I could get hit.
Steady now.
But, you know, it is a fact of life that we are badly funded. The majority of Aberdeenshire's funding goes on education. Up go the costs, but we don't get additional funding for it. So, you know, we have to make difficult decisions. And in a way, the nanny state has done too much. We have to do things for ourselves. And yes, we need to support children in schools, but, you know, perhaps that should be a government lobbying thing rather than a local authority thing, because we're struggling.
Thank you. Before we come back to Grant, some of this, again, on Eleanor's points, Derek Ross and Anne Ross. Derek.
I just wanted further explanation. What are we not doing in terms in schools, Eleanor? You know, the third sector has always had some input into schools. You know, I struggle to see what elected representatives who are here on the park can do. You know, you're kind of pointing the finger at us and saying, well, you know, but you're not doing enough here.
Right, I'm really going to be the body on this board, aren't I? Every week there's something that offends somebody. But more and more applications are coming through for funding support workers in classrooms to deal with children with special needs.
I'm sorry, certainly in the schools that I represent, that is not something that the park has been, or Cairngorms, the trust has been involved with whatsoever.
I think the ladies can clarify where it is, but I think off the top of my head it's Kingussie area and specifically.
Kingussie High School, Granton Grammar School. Thanks, Eleanor.
I think we should maybe take some of the detail of this conversation offline, but thanks for those points. And Anne Ross.
Yes, thank you. I thought it was a very interesting and enlightening presentation, so thank you in the work that you're doing. My question is slightly different. Your projects are well spread out, but I was wondering if, with place plans coming into being, how much, when you're dealing with applications and when the applications are, the projects are growing, or how much consideration you take into the place plans that are coming forward now.
Thank you, Anne. When we receive applications, we tend to open out applications to everyone across the park. And when we receive applications in, we have board members who are from all around the different areas of the park, and we are very conscious that we want to try and spread the funding around as much as possible, and that will, I suppose, come into more play when the place plans are fully in place. But we're very aware of that. It's a topic of conversation that happens at most of our board meetings as well, is making sure that funding is spread all the way around the park rather than just centralised.
Thank you. If I could come back. So will you be consulting place plans when I mean, they're coming into fruition at the moment? Are you going to, when you get applications, is that going to be part of the process?
Thanks, Anne. The place plans themselves will be taken into consideration on a strategic level, definitely. At the moment, we work with officers in the park who produce the community action plan, so each of the local communities who are doing that. So we look at even more localised, I guess, than a place plan right down into a local community. But as the place plans come online, certainly we will be liaising with each of those local authorities to make sure that what we're doing is aligned with what they're trying to do as well.
Thank you, because my understanding is action plans are important, but place plans are equally important, and they're the sort of the new kid on the block as far as that sort of thing is concerned. So thank you.
Thank you. contributions from Jackie Brereton, Mike Williamson and Fiona McLean. Jackie.
Thanks, Convener. First of all, I'd just like to say that congratulations are in order for the fact that the Cairngorms Trust is one of the few models, independent models, that was able to carry forward the work of the LAG. A lot of leader LAGs across the country have failed to actually put a more independent approach together. And I think it's allowed the Trust to operate slightly differently, hopefully to its benefit. And obviously the youth LAG is also best practice. But I wonder, given that the allocation for this year has been largely capital, I understand, and what impact is that going to have on your ability to fulfil the project applications that you're getting? Going back to Eleanor's point about impact and evaluation, have you been able to do any impact assessments on the work you've done, or are there plans to do that? And I suppose the final point would be the last Leader programme put emphasis on supporting enterprise and entrepreneurship within communities. And although there's one or two of your projects are probably promoting enterprising behaviour, there's not any specific support, as far as I can see, for social enterprise or micro-businesses or self-employed people, where there's obviously a great need for that funding. So it was just a question as to whether that's on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. So in terms of evaluation, the Scottish Government asked us all as local action groups, and I'm sure you'll remember this yourself, to input into something wider called the Social Value Engine. And we were hoping that that would be a mechanism where we could look at our local impact. Unfortunately, that's being done at a much higher level, and we're finding that the value for local is more limited. So it gives a more national picture of how that programme and its long-term impact has been. So we are in the process of coming towards the end of our next 5 years, as it were. In 2020, we evaluated the Leader programme and its impact across the park. We're just putting in place some good tools in the authority itself, working with our information manager to make sure that we're capturing all of that. So we're in a process of back capture of data at the moment to make sure that in replacement of the Social Value Engine, we're managing to capture good data. So I'll make sure that that comes through in a future board paper to yourselves as an update, and thank you for your interest. We really appreciate it. In terms of support for social enterprises and small businesses, we are open to all, and we very much encourage the business community to work with us, and we're always really encouraged when organisations like GrowBiz work with us to enable businesses to come forward with innovative ideas. It's where we got a few of our projects last year, actually, and they were small businesses who are now converting to being CICs themselves. So very, very exciting to work with them, but we take your comments on board. Thank you so much for your support. I would just echo that one of the reasons why Cairngorms Trust has been so innovative and so successful on a national stage, as Jackie says, replacing the old LAG format with a more robust format, has been through the support of the National Park Authority, allowing it to grow and respond to community need, and much more in place rather than as part of a wider local authority, which they find they're less dynamic. I think we're much more dynamic because we're part of the Park Authority. So thanks go to this board for also supporting that work.
Thank you. Michael Williamson.
Thank you, Convener. Just to go back to Eleanor's point, I do think you are right to a degree around about funding from third sectors into schools. You mentioned specifically additional support, but from my council area, I think we've got something in the order of 30% increase in the number of people who are requiring additional support needs, and I think that's just the ones who've been prescribed. I think there's an awful lot more than that within the system. I think this teaching staff are struggling to cope with that. I think getting third sector funding into schools should be seen as a positive, not as a negative, in the sense of we're building a sense of community around about that. My own wife, for example, she's a early years practitioner in Blair Athol. They went out and got third sector funding for a kiddie buggy, so they can take the nursery kids to Forest Schools, for example. So it takes eight kids. So that was funded privately and not through the council. So I think some of this stuff can be seen as a real positive and community building, rather than the negative. Okay, but I agree with what you're saying, that we possibly could fund more. If you just give me a second to finish, the other thing as well is Tayside contracts do a community fund that might be worthwhile tapping into. It's not actually funding, it's actually projects they can do, such as barbecues or tarmacking a bit road or a community facility. So they could do with maybe match funding, or if match funding was available for Tayside contracts, I'm sure that it might be a worthwhile conversation to have, but I can put you in touch with the people to speak to about that. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike. I'll just ask Eleanor to come back on that first point.
I didn't mean to be negative about third sector funding in that scenario at all. I think they can do a lot of good. I would just question the need. Well, there is a need. That's silly to say there's not a need, but why third sector are paying salaries? That's really the nub of my query. But I'll leave it because I'm not going to say it.
Fiona McLean, followed by Bill Lobbin and Derek Ross. Fiona.
I have to say, I'm really impressed with the amount of work that you've done. You don't have the staff that Leader had. You certainly don't have the staff of the National Lottery Heritage Fund, and yet look what you've achieved. And I think we need a degree of realism about the capacity to, you know, actually do things. You know, I think it'd be fantastic if you could do a lot of evaluation work and that, but I think there's a limit to how much you can do given the resource that you have. So I think what you have achieved so far is outstanding, and I think, if anything, you need more resource to help you to actually achieve more.
Thank you. Just briefly, Mike Williamson, to come back on Eleanor's comments.
Yeah, listen, Ella, I'm not disagreeing with anything you say. Okay, I think you've got a really good point that's needing to be made. I think it's a sustainability, which you mentioned yourself about some of the funding and the third sector funding, and that does create problems going forward for people. I think that is the key around about this. I think councils do have a role and responsibility about this, but I think, as I said before, I think it's about building community, and we're all in this together. We're all looking at the same hill, maybe from a different direction, but we're all looking at the same hill at the end of the day.
Thank you, Mike. Bill Lobbin, followed by Derek Ross and Lauren McCallum. Bill.
To be perfectly honest, any additional help that the third sector can give, I suppose, councils in Scotland towards providing any service has got to be looked on extremely positively. And it's not something you should just automatically take a pop at councils for. And you can say whatever you like, Eleanor, that's what I think you did. At least that's the way I picked it up as. Now, personally, the devil is in the detail. I'm a local elected member for 2 of the schools you mentioned. I'd like to see the detail of what is being spent, what is being provided, etc. Because in both of the schools that you mentioned, there is massive parental involvement, whether that be paid for or free. But certainly all of our schools all over Scotland are suffering really severely from lack of resources. And any resource that can be added into them, irrespective of where it comes from, has got to be welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Again, I think we can pick up the detail in the 2 schools after the meeting. Derek Ross.
I think we've been kind of sidetracked in this. I don't think we should be discussing this at Cairngorm National Park Board. You know, I mean, this is for us to discuss at a council level. You know, I'm uncomfortable with the discussion and where it's gone. And I think Bill's nodding there, and he feels the same. I'm just uncomfortable with the way the discussion's gone, Chair.
Thank you, Derek. Lord McCallum.
Yeah, thanks so much. The presentation definitely made the paper come alive. And really encouraged to see the work being done with the BAME community as well. We know that we've got a long, long way to go to truly make it a park for all. And I'm really interested in the lived experienced panel. I just wanted to ask in terms of the kind of further work that's going on with the sort of BAME community. I was with some colleagues with opening up the outdoors. I'm not sure if you've come across them, but you know, there's maybe a potential to connect you in with them if you're not already. And just actually, just a question about kind of class and class solidarity and how we're kind of getting, you know, the experiences of working class people and that lived experience, or yeah, basically just a bit more detail on that, because yeah, really encouraged to see that.
Thank you, Lauren. So the lived experience panel was originally put together with the assistance of an independent contractor from the BAME community, and she has worked with people from the BAME community around the Cairngorms and within the Cairngorms, and she's currently looking to increase the amount of people that are directly living within the Cairngorms on that panel. So it's work in progress. It's been a process and a long process to get it to the point where we could actually open up the fund, and I think it's an ongoing process with that, and developing people within the lived experience panel, because we've definitely found that when there's something to go for, so like for example when we had the fund going out, that was a real tangible target for people to work towards and work you know, sort of a goal to get. So that was a real positive thing. And then the continuation, well, it is continuation, isn't it? David will be able to tell you a bit more about that as well.
Yeah, Laura, we're working in partnership with the Cairngorms Trust, the Lived Experience panel, and as we develop the participatory democracy section of Cairngorms 2030 to co-design that climate action fund, that £1 million fund, we'll be ensuring that all those voices are part of that. So we're going to be working with the Involve Foundation, our national leaders in developing citizens' assemblies and juries and bringing people together. So we'll be scoping that over the next couple of months, and we'll be able to update you how we plan to take that forward.
Thank you very much. Hannah Grist, followed by Steve Micklewright.
Sorry, I'm kind of here, so you can't see me waving. I actually want to pick up a little bit on the participation question, so thanks for that, David. I did see, let me find my sentence, that obviously we've talked about Cairngorms 2030 trialling new approaches to participation, and it's really exciting to see what the Trust has done with that already and kind of maybe starting some of those pilots or proving that they work. There's a clear connection between the work and position of the Cairngorms Trust and potential implications for the role of the Trust depending on the outcomes of the current work, and that contains a lot of questions, I guess. And I was interested to hear about what the ambitions might be around what that might mean for the relationship between CMPA, the Cairngorms Trust and the communities, and how that relationship model might be something very innovative that could become best practice in a different way. And then if I might just add a second point in there, which is I saw something around the kind of move from long-term funding to short-term funding obviously changes how you can respond to things, and I can totally see the frustration with that, and that's an ongoing frustration, I'm sure, for a lot of organisations in your position. I did wonder if that could be turned around as actually not quite a positive necessarily, but your role is maybe more about being able to be responsive to needs, perhaps shorter term needs. So you've kind of got quite a unique position of having that long-term relationship with communities, but the responsiveness of the way your grant model works and the way you can step in very quickly with this short-term funding. And actually that could be a strength, because you don't have to have this much longer-term planning necessarily. Other organisations or other systems might step in with that, but you could be there to provide that much quicker response to needs. So it could be something to promote and target rather than just be worried about the lack of it.
Thank you very much. Yes, we're definitely very aware on the response times, because often communities come to us with an idea and they can work it up within quite a short space of time, and if we have a fund open, then that fund can be can be accessible to them. So it's definitely a strength. But we're also very aware that there are a lot of projects that want to know that they are they are going to be able to try and get funding to keep the project alive once they've got it up that initial stage. So there's definitely, I would very happy to take your point on both of those. We feel that we are quite responsive to needs within the communities, because we're regularly opening funds, and we're regularly oversubscribed for funds. There's a real need for funding within the communities, within the Cairngorms. So we're very, I suppose, very aware of that, to use it as a strength, and how we would work in future to potentially speak to with the CLLD funding. Bridget is constantly speaking with Scottish Government and seeing if there is a way of getting some of the funding to becoming a bit more long term, so that we can cover both sides of things. In terms of the innovation in our relationship, I think the relationship between the CMPA and the 2030 team is really positive. We have been passing on a lot of the information of the funds that we've had about the East Bike project, sort of going back and forward, and I would very much like to see that continue and develop. And as the 2030 programme grows, and comes towards 2030, then I think at that point we would need to, sort of like continue to look at what role the trust plays within that, and how it might be a potential to be a bit of a legacy sort of as part of that.
Thank you, Nancy. I think there's agreement on the direction of travel in terms of our relationships. Steve McElwright.
Yeah, this has been a little more negative than I thought it was going to be, so I just wanted to say congratulations for some fantastic projects and some fantastic work. And I also wanted to say communities generally know what they need, and it's really refreshing to see a fund that communities can apply for what they need. And I really hope that you've got away from the sort of EU leadery stuff of, all the evaluation and all of the form filling that communities have had to do, and that you keep that to a minimum going forward, because that just stifles communities. But taking Eleanor's point about impact and evaluation, that would be great as well to get that, but I don't think that's your job. I don't think that's the grantee's job. I think that's possibly the CMPA's job to find some support to get that done for you, so that you've got a really strong platform to say, look how we take funding and give it to communities and empower them to do what they need to do. And that's the main message I got out of today's stuff from you. So I just want to say thanks, because that was really, really positive. Really good, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Jackie Brereton.
Just wanted to come back to this year's funding allocation, and if you could tell us what that is and what percentage of capital versus revenue, and because I know there's less revenue, have you been able to identify any other sources that you could leverage in to support that, and is there anything as a board that we could help you with on that?
Thank you, Jackie. Yeah, I think to give some context, the CLLD funding that we receive from Scottish Government every year, that we put a plan together with communities about what we would like to deliver. We are given national priorities to deliver against, and then we use community action plans to develop funds to meet the needs of communities. So it's a bottom-up approach, CLLD. The capitalisation of this year's fund has not been helpful for some communities who quite naturally revenue is often where they're looking for for money. We've approached this by opening the fund for expressions of interest as early as we could, so at the beginning of the calendar year rather than the financial year. We were already talking to communities when we realised that capital funding was going to be the main source of funding this year. Our allocation was just above 300,000 this year, and 275 roughly will be going to communities this year after we've taken out some costs for staffing. The way the capitalisation has been done, they've been quite flexible at Scottish Government. It's been very positive. So we're working with communities who have long-term capital funding aims to look at how we can be the springboard to help with that. So we will fund feasibility studies, for example, within a community hall where they're looking to capitalise in the future. It might not come into fruition in this year, but we will capitalise that feasibility study. And Scottish Government have been extremely flexible with that, and we've worked with the CMPA very closely to enable that to happen. And again, it's the flexibility of both of those organisations to meet the needs of communities. So we're actively working with communities to find good capital projects. We are trying, I think we're trying to reflect on the fact that not every community can bring forward a large capital project. And so we're also looking at how small capital projects can move through in a fairly easy way through our funding streams, taking the weight off of communities to capitalise small capital projects, small capital projects. So take all of that on board, Jackie, and I'm very, very comfortable to have a conversation with you today to look at how we might do that more effectively and draw on your experience of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments or questions on the paper? None, thanks. I think we've drilled down into some very important specific points and some bigger and very important strategic questions. So is the board content to note progress to date in delivery of the National Park Partnership Plan and corporate plan objectives in respect of community-led local development? And that's in addition to our comments on the strategic questions we've raised. Thank you very much. We'll now take a comfort break and resume at 11:05. Thank you. Right, thank you very much, Board. We move on to item 8, paper 4, Cairngorms 2030 programme update. So this is for 2024 and the first quarter of 25. This is for discussion. The paper gives the Board an update on the first 18 months of the delivery phase. And obviously, a significant amount of work has taken place across the programme. There's been a huge amount of engagement with people in the park. I think we've all seen examples of that starting to make a real difference on the ground. And as you've seen, and as we've discussed earlier, it's generated a vast amount of positive local and national media coverage. So the board is being asked to note progress to date and future plans for Cairngorms 2030 delivery, note specific points of Cairngorms 2030 delivery risk, and to highlight any issues arising that members may feel need specific consideration by staff from a strategic and a board point of view. It will be introduced by David Klein, Head of Cairngorms 2030. David.
Thank you, Convener. Yep, I'm pleased to present this update on Cairngorms 2030 today. So this covers the first year of delivery phase in 2024 and the first quarter of 2025. Included in your papers and in hard copy format with you today is an annual highlights report which we've submitted to the National Lottery and we'll be providing to our delivery partners. So last year marked a really strong year to the start of our delivery phase. We now have the full team of project delivery staff in place, and I'd just like to start by thanking our HR team for all their excellent work in bringing together and recruiting such a capable and committed team. The first...
David, sorry to interrupt. Could I ask you to take your mic a little bit closer?
Sorry.
You?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The first 6 months of the year was focused on transitioning from the development to the delivery phase, which included finalising recruitment, refining our project plans, and formalising and strengthening our delivery partnerships. That investment is now paying off with tangible activity taking place on the ground, and we've successfully issued and awarded 24 invitations to tender over that calendar period. We've also learned some valuable lessons along the way, particularly around implementing complex project management systems, staff training, as well as drafting robust procurement plans. And these insights are now being embedded in our forward look and forward plans. You'll be pleased to know that I'm not going to cover all 20 projects today. There's far too much going on, but looking at key highlights across our 4 delivery themes, and starting with landscape restoration, which has been the standout success area. So congratulations to Colin and his team. With over 2,000 hectares of peatland were restored in that period, which is well above the delivery target. 517 hectares of native woodland were planted on Athol Estates, and our 2 new community deer larders are now operational and distributing venison locally and attracting national attention for their dual impact on nature as well as community wealth building. Our 1.5 million Nature Recovery Fund, or grant scheme, has received 32 expressions of interest, and we're now working really closely with applicants to shape those viable and impactful projects. And if we are unable to fund them to the Cairngorms 2030 programme, we will be identifying alternative funding sources, as Grant mentioned earlier on. Our work continues with 6 farms delivering those regenerative practices, and our catchment restoration projects are progressing really well through design and application stages. Across our Empowering Communities theme, our engagement work has been equally impressive. If you were around the park, if our visitors were around the park, over 10,000 people would have seen our staff at events last year, and we did engage with over 1,200 meaningful conversations over that period. We've also started to test new methods of community engagement to ensure that we have inclusive participation. Our Creative Arts and Culture project, in partnership with the new Cairngorms Creative Group, which we helped create, held its first gallery exhibition in Granton just a few weeks ago, which attracted hundreds of people. And we've now appointed a consultant to lead the co-design of a £1 million community climate grant fund, which we will be designing and hoping to launch next year. On health and wellbeing, we continue to lead nationally in green health innovation. The Outdoor Dementia Centre has supported over 1,000 people during that year and has been a real catalyst for change both locally and nationally. And it has even inspired our delivery partner, Alzheimer's Scotland, to open a similar centre down in Edinburgh. So I'm delighted to say that we're now be able to demonstrate scalability of our projects at such an early stage of the programme. And our partnership with NHS Highland continues to grow, and we've got 39 health referrals coming through last year, and we're now getting strong outcomes reported for those participants. Finally, on our transport theme, it definitely remains one of our most challenging delivery themes. It's basically due to the delay in securing Transport Scotland funding for the Active Communities suite of projects. That delay has impacted all local authorities in Scotland, so the park is not unique in not receiving this funding award letter, and certainly no active travel design funding has been confirmed to date. So that decision currently rests with the Scottish Government, and that decision needs to be communicated to Transport Scotland before they can issue award notices to us. But if we do receive the funding award letter over the next few weeks, we will proceed with full procurement and complete that procurement for Aviemore, Boatgarten, Newtonmore and Nethy Bridge. And you will see that the Aviemore and Boatgarten procurement is now live on PCS. So if the timescales match, that will all go ahead. It is very important to note that the Active Communities project is just one of 4 transport projects that we are delivering as part of Cairngorms 2030, and so that funding delay only impacts Active Communities. And we are already delivering multiple activities in our communities on transport. So we've been delivering cycling confidence building sessions within our schools. We've created new bike bus groups in our communities. Bike maintenance skill sessions are already up and running, and we started to grant fund communities through a transport grant to develop their own initiatives. And yeah, next year, and this year we'll actually be shaping up our plans for community cycle hub infrastructure and improvements to bus stops in Badenoch and Strathspey. On governance and risk, our governance framework has successfully passed external audit and been enhanced over the year. Our programme risk management is now a standing item at senior management meetings and is now reviewed quarterly at both the performance and audit and risk committees. And as at the end of March this year, the overall programme risk profile remains at amber, and that is primarily due to that Transport Scotland funding delay. So whilst we're not yet on a critical path, we do intend to escalate the Active Communities project to risk status red for Q2 25 reporting, so that's up to the end of June. And we're now discussing alternative delivery options with partners. If funding is not confirmed by the end of July, we will be assessing the long-term viability of that project and we will be able to advise on our mitigation plan. And I can also confirm that National Lottery has been fully briefed on these risks and is supportive of our approach. On budget management, financially we remain within our agreed cost plan. Our cash flow planning is robust and up to date, and our National Lottery claims have all been approved and paid in full. And looking forward to the end of the year, we're definitely going to be focused on resolving that transport funding uncertainty and identifying new projects if necessary. We'll be confirming the nature recovery projects with partners, developing those new cycle hubs. We'll be deepening our community partnerships and starting to co-design a new community climate grant fund for next year. And going into next year, you'll really begin to see 20 projects moving to visible on-site delivery, which is fantastic. So that's all I wanted to cover today as key highlights. I want to thank all the park staff, all our partners, and indeed this board for the continued hard work, their enthusiasm and support in delivering Cairngorms 2030. None of this is easy. Despite that funding delay for one project area, the programme remains on track. And we do feel that we've got sufficient flex and support from our partners and across the programme to adapt and to manage those risks as they develop. So our project managers and our senior management team remain confident that we can continue to deliver on the Cairngorms 2030's ambitions, and we continue to build on that momentum towards the Cairngorms being the UK's first net zero national park. So I'm happy to take any reflections or questions today. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I'm sure the whole board would want to reflect back that appreciation to staff, to all the many partners, to everybody else involved in delivering a vast amount of work. I mean, board members have had the privilege of seeing some of that work in action, from the Dear Larder to the application of the adaptation fund. I wish there were more board time to do more board visits to see this work transforming lives, helping nature. Alas, we don't. On the specific point, which I'm sure the board will want to discuss on transport funding, I can assure you that our CEO is pursuing this at official level, and I'm standing by to intervene directly with the Cabinet Secretary should that become necessary. So, comments and questions. Derek Ross.
First one, what's, is it gamification on page 9 of the 14? That's the first question. Second one is, have you been liaising with Murray in terms of the M-Connect, which has been an initiative that's been paid for by the growth deal in Murray, and how the services can interconnect between communities? That's the second one. And the third one is on page 12 of 14, as G, the cycle hubs. I'm surprised that we're not mentioning Tomintoul and Glenlivet in that, because I know that the park was instrumental in supplying a bike repair station in Tomintoul, but I'm surprised that it's not mentioned there. Okay, thanks, David.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. The gamification event was a project designed in partnership with Edinburgh University and our own planning colleagues. and it was basically taking a game format to look at how we shape local development plan and what the priorities for people are in contributing to that and discussing that. So we've held a couple of events, one in Aviemore, and we did one recently with our own staff, and it was a really exciting and interesting way to discuss all those challenges about finding out what local priorities are. So we were going to be taking the evaluation from that and working out the best way to take that forward. I've took part in the game twice, and I was really fascinated to see if you take a group of individuals and just have them open. It's a self-led process, and it was really interesting to see that the priorities they had at the start of the discussion didn't really match up with the priorities they had at the end, and then there was a really strong and constructive discussion about how they could best manage those resources to decide as a collective what the priorities were for that area. So we'll be taking that forward. In terms of the transport stuff, our sustainable transport team have been contacting both the regional transport partnerships, so I'm absolutely sure the M-Connect issue has come up, but I'll doubly check that for you. And on the cycle hubs, yes, we do intend to have cycle hub infrastructure in all our communities. So we're currently working out the best strategy and delivery plan and what facilities are appropriate for each of our main towns and villages. So that's something we'll be able to report on in the next couple of months.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Russell, followed by Lauren.
Thanks, and thanks, David. 2 or 3 questions. You mentioned the community deer larders there, and the board went to visit the one at Glenshee there a few weeks ago, which was hugely impressive, and they were hugely impressive couple, the way they presented themselves, and a hugely impressive lunch as well, I have to say. So it's the most important thing. But just to pick up on the community thing, I mean, you've just referenced it there as community deer larder, but when we were there that day, we were told the community's not actually using that one because there's issues around biosecurity, and so they've only been using it themselves. So is that going to be rolled out to the community, and are these issues around biosecurity going to be ironed out so that we can actually say it is a community deer larder? Also, the active travel, you mentioned that there's issues with funding, and so probably if nothing's happened yet, there was, I know there's a couple of projects in Newton Moor, but there was a possibility of another one, a road crossing at the Folk Museum, and I'd spoken to Colin Simpson about it one time at a board meeting before. Is there any possibility to have that added? And because it's quite a dangerous crossing when it comes off the cycle path and a sort of gap in the wall. And I was just interested to know what was the improvements to the bus stops in Breenock and Strathspey that you talked about. Thank you.
Yeah, starting with the deer larders, we need to evaluate what the 2 projects we have before we scale them up. So part of the evaluation is going to be see how those, what the challenges have been with setting them up. So that they've actually only been operational for best part of 6 months now. So we do have to look at that issue. I'm not aware of the individual biosecurity issue that was raised there. I wasn't at that meeting, but I'm sure, yeah, Grant can have a chat with you after that. But yeah, it's very important that we take all those issues, both in terms of seasonality and throughput of carcasses through the larders, and then we fully understand the income generation possibilities, the innovation of working with our communities. So we hope to do that evaluation period between now and the end of the year, and have a plan in place before we invest in others. So we do have a bit of work there to figure out what is the best model for future delivery on that. Yeah. On the active travel project, the Kingussie road crossing wasn't part of Cairngorms 2030. Sorry, Newtonmore, sorry. So that would require a separate funding application to Transport Scotland, but I can have a chat with Colin Simpson and see where we are with that one. Yeah, if we can do it, it's obviously something that we will be looking to do as part of the wider package. But if there's no active travel design funding coming through Cairngorms 20, it's highly unlikely there'll be funding available for any additional work. And on the bus stop, we've been working with Highland Council, and we've been doing a bus stop audit to look at the quality, distribution and use of bus stops in that area. So we've got a bit of work that's been completed. We've also done a walkability design survey to see how simple it is or challenging it is to use those bus stops. So we'll be preparing that report, and we'll be able to share that with you. And we'll be working with the council to see what are the opportunities for improving or rationalising bus stops, and indeed which ones would be benefit from additional investment, which ones can have better qualities of information, potentially e-bike charging or bike racks installed at them, and seeing what the opportunities are to make that bus travel a lot more easier and greener.
Thank you. So Lauren McCallan, followed by Anne Ross, then Jackie Brereton. Lauren.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Thanks, David. It's some really excellent projects and amazing work. I just wanted to kind of pick up on a sort of general point in terms of the community benefits nature officer recruited by the Scottish Land Commission, and just maybe one for just kind of board updates. I met some of the team at the Royal Highland Show last week, and would love to kind of understand a little bit more about that. And I can sort of sense some of the was it kind of nervousness from the communities around what that actually means, like what is nature capital, and how is land exchanging hands, and what does that mean for our communities? And I know it's new, and the markets are changing, etc., but I don't really seem to get that answer when we're pressing for 200 million, 300 million pounds worth of investment. So I would just love to kind of have a little bit more maybe training or education or kind of info on that as a board, because I think it is something in terms of carbon credits we need to kind of get on the front foot of. But great to see that that member of staff employed. What was my next bit? Oh, the next bit was just great to see the storytelling from the Deer Larder, and the metrics are the proofs in the pudding there. I think we'd love to see more of that work, and I know Rupert's a very good storyteller and camera person, so yeah, well done on that, and would love to see more of that storytelling, because I think it really does, get people on side with the work that we're trying to do, and there's some amazing stories to tell, so yeah, well done on that. And just like, I think I've said this before, but with the active travel, and especially with the bikes, you're not going to use your bike if you can't safely store it and lock it. Like, the bike station is just here, and you'd be pressed to find a bike in there under £1,000, and we're just not going to get people to use their bikes if they can't safely store them and lock them. So yeah, just to keep hammering that point, because I think a lot of the infrastructure completely misses the point in terms of people are just not going to leave them if they don't feel it's safe. And I've seen somebody walk into Aldi's in Aviemore and somebody rip a bike off the top and be gone within 10 seconds. So, and I know there's been a couple of opportunistic thefts as well from visitors, with staying at guest houses and things, and it's just going to put people off as well. So yeah, just to hammer that point. Thank you.
I 100% agree. I think secure bike storage is a fundamental part of what a cycle hub would be. So it's going to be a bare minimum of providing that storage. And certainly in the last transport grant round, we did fund Ballater to install new and secure bike storage. So that's definitely in the plan.
Thank you. Just on the first point, we did have a session on green finance, but it is a rapidly evolving area, and there's always room for updating. We've got an upcoming session with the Land Commission, specifically on land reform. Grant.
Yeah, I was just going to say, obviously Annabelle's only recently started with Scottish Land Commission and the Cairngorms 2030 side, and the estates that she's working with, they've only just started. I think once she's a bit further forward in the process, then we can organise a session with the board in terms of how that work's going. So I don't know whether sometime during the winter probably makes some sense in terms of that side. But we do have the session coming up on the current consultation that's out by the Land Commission, Scott Land Futures, which we're going to do on the 15th of August board day. So we've got some 2 or 3 members of the SLC board coming along to this meeting to discuss what that looks like and have some sort of workshop session with them about the future of land reform in Scotland.
Thank you. And Ross, followed by Jackie Brereton.
Thank you, and a very interesting paper, and well done for everything you're achieving. My concern is, my question is regarding the Outdoor Dementia Resource Centre, and which is 21D. And it says that it has been identified that work on the sustainable future of the ODRC needs to begin soon. Was the viability, long-term financial viability of the outdoor centre, of the dementia centre, not taken into account when it was founded? And because I was quite surprised to see that. I thought that would have been part of the planning of it, that it would have been financially sustainable going forward.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the wording's confusing there, but yeah, certainly the long-term legacy planning has been built into the project plan. So the sustainability and long-term income generation of that is and the business planning is a key component that Alzheimer's Scotland will have to provide to us by the end of 2028. So I think that comment was referring to that we over the next 6 months we'll be bringing together all interested partners. So that's the Park Authority, Alzheimer's Scotland and the NHS Highland to explore what the future holds for that centre and how it integrates with other health and social care services in the area, and what that long-term plan looks like. So it's definitely in the plan to produce, and as you're seeing nationally, they're already scaling up and investing in other areas down in Edinburgh. So it is scalable, it's viable, but we just need to ensure that what we're doing is sustainable. And indeed, Alzheimer's Scotland's strategy is all around brain health, and it's not just all about elderly people with dementia. It's about the whole lifetime care of brain health that they're looking at. So they're aiming to, broaden and strengthen their project delivery across health.
Thank you, because I think it's a fantastic resource, and as you say, they're scaling up elsewhere, but
Yep.
It's really badly needed. Dementia is affecting so many in our communities, not just the elderly, but young as well. So that's why I was concerned by that sentence, and I'm thinking, the alarm bells were quietly ringing. So thank you for your reassurance.
Thank you. Jackie Brereton.
Thanks, Convener. Thanks very much for the report, David. It was really useful to get more detail on some of those aspects. Sort of 3 questions, comments, I suppose. The engagement you've done, community engagement, has been impressive in terms of numbers. Do you think, in terms of the engagement with the business and enterprise community in the park area, is that just included in that, or do you think there's a need for doing some specific engagement with that community? Around the wellbeing economy project areas, are you able to articulate or define the economic outcomes and benefits of these projects? And just under the community wealth building, could you tell us a bit more about what's included within community wealth building and which of the principles the projects are addressing? Thank you.
I think they're all very closely linked, those questions, and certainly the wellbeing economy can be classed as community wealth building, and we would kind of approach them in a similar fashion. Since the application, the policy area around wellbeing economy has changed at the Scottish Government national level. We've since published our Wellbeing Economy Action Plan, and so we're now looking at separately what the monitoring and evaluation looks like across 20 individual projects are. So we will be reporting on indicators on the wellbeing economy to inform impact. So that's something that we will be doing on an annual basis. So that's certainly something we can share with you. And yeah, I mean, community wealth, I think the Dear Larder one is a fantastic example. You know, we're taking a new business startup. We're taking you know, landscape scale challenges with taking deer off the hill. We're improving habitats, but at the same time we're providing a much needed service and high quality venison into the community through schools and through food banks. So that is 100%. It's a really nice just transition model we're building into there, which is fully supporting that community wealth aspiration. And certainly on the enterprise question, I think further communication with the business community is certainly something we'll be planning to do as we go from years, to the last 2 years of the project, as we start to build the legacy and figure and realise what the long-term investment plan should be and what the key legacy we want to do and what we want to do with future investment in the park and how we scale up through landscape scale connection projects and how we bring partners together on that one.
Thank you. John Kirk.
Thank you, David. Some great opportunities. The one I keep bringing up is obviously the transport one. Is there any date for Highland Council putting their buses into Speyside, or is there any information on that?
No, that's something that will be going forward in the future, John.
Okay. I'm just concerned at the amount of focus trying to get to work. You know, the Indian guys are running the shop in Nethy, and these guys depend on the bus to get out to open it, shut it, and all the rest of it. And there's quite a few nights the buses don't appear. One night the guy came out to me, where do I get a bus? I said, I'll run you back into Grantown, you know. So there's folk have got a bit fed up with the whole system, and it's not gelling, and along with the train system, as you know. So I don't know how we can bring it together properly.
Bill.
John, the new fact that the first meeting of it was last week in the National Park, building. Council instigated the new transport forum, which I think will be helpful in bringing forward sort of integrated transport initiatives. So that's something you maybe want to keep an eye on in the future.
Thank you, Bill. Any other comments or questions on the paper? Round the room. None, thank you very much, in which case, is the board content to note progress to date and future plans for Cairngorm's 2030 delivery, having noted delivery risks and highlighted strategic issues, especially around the transport issue we discussed at the start? Thank you very much, board. Taking us to item 9, paper 5, minutes from committee meetings. This is for information. Are there any points by exception? None, thank you. Is the board content to note the minutes of the Resources Committee and Performance Committee and note the confidential minutes of those committees? Thank you again. Item 12, is there any other competent business? None. Thank you again. So that concludes this formal board meeting. So we do have other meetings here today. Thank you, members and staff. Thanks to members of the public who've been watching or listening to a recording of our meeting, and to our hosts here at Ballators Albert Hall. Our next formal board meeting will be on the 26th of September 2025. Thank you very much.